New York City mayoral hopeful Andrew Yang is now apologizing after he issued a statement on the violence and ongoing conflict in Israel and, of course, Gaza. Initially, he said, "I'm standing with the people of Israel who are coming under bombardment attacks and condemn." He says that he condemns the Hamas terrorists. "The people of NYC will always stand with our brothers and sisters in Israel who face down terrorism and persevere." So he got a lot of blowback for that.
Bad.
Because if you know, if you've been following the story and you actually care about the facts, his framing there makes it seem as though the aggressors were the Palestinians, that, poor Israeli government, they were doing nothing wrong and they were brutally attacked, they're being bombarded. That's not what happened. And we've explained what actually happened. This aggression toward Palestinians began a month ago with Benjamin Netanyahu limiting their ability to practice their religion during the month of Ramadan by raiding the Al-Aqsa Mosque and, of course, by attempting to evict Palestinians from their homes in East Jerusalem. And the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu did that was to garner support and deflect from the fact that he is facing criminal prosecution for corruption and he has failed to form a government. So this is what authoritarian leaders do when they want to garner support. They fearmonger, they create violent and hostile situations, and essentially try to persuade voters to support them in order to keep people safe. But that's the exact opposite of what Netanyahu is really doing. So that's a little bit of context so you can understand why Yang was facing the blowback that he did.
Yeah.
Now, a mosque that he was supposed to have a campaign event at decided to cancel that event after he issued that statement. And they said this: "We have nothing against him. We are against his words. When he put out this tweet against Palestinians, everyone started calling me, community leaders, Muslims and other people, because they didn't like what he tweeted." And then he added that he feared including Yang in the event. He didn't want to I want to mess up with my 400 family distribution here because of one person.
Yeah, it has an actual function that could be totally thrown off by people going there specifically because of Yang.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the immediate consequence that he suffered, along with some of the blowback. But then later he issued a bit of an apology and also says that he is actually very much concerned about Palestinian lives. Here's what his statement looked like. In the statement, he claims, "I mourn for every Palestinian life taken before its time, as I do for every Israeli. Suffering and pain and violence and death suffered by anyone hurts us all. All people want to," all right, yeah, let's keep that up. "Support of a people does not make one blind to the pain and suffering of others. Again, most everyone simply wants to be able to live and pray in peace." And the statement goes on. Maybe we can go to the next one and just really emphasize that he's now claiming, "They were, of course, correct. I mourn for every Palestinian life taken before its time, as I do for every Israeli. Support of people does not make one blind to the pain and suffering of others." Now, Ken Klippenstein pointed something out that's really interesting. How do you use so many words to say so little?
Yeah.
Ken Klippenstein, finger on the pulse.
It's always. There's a lot of fingers, a lot of pulses, but he's got one always. Yeah, so Yang, who is like this free-thinking independent politician, took 2 tries to make something roughly as good as Gal Gadot's statement on the issue. Like if you are sick of mealy-mouthed, weak, careful Democratic politician statements on Israel that both sides strip out all the context. He didn't even do that the first time. There was no acknowledgement. I don't think Palestine existed in his first statement. Like there was no acknowledgement whatsoever of the deaths. It's just some terrorists attack Israel, they can do whatever they want. The second one is a little bit better. Like half of it is kind of self-serving, like everyone loves me because I'm so free thinking or whatever. And then it was, I don't want civilians to die, but I'm not going to acknowledge anything of what's happening or the continual cycle or American influence on it. None of it. the disproportionate use of and willingness to use force, the fact that the death toll is nothing like 50-50. And so it is better, but it's not good.
I just think that people need to be real about candidates in these types of political races, because I think that I said this in the initial story that we covered, I think that we give candidates far too much credit and think far too much about their knowledge. Like, Andrew Yang has been consistently awful on answering questions pertaining to foreign policy. We saw quite a bit of that in the 2020 Democratic primary. He believes that we should support Israel unequivocally, regardless of what they do. He made that clear when he was running in the 2020 presidential election. I say that because, like, sure, he's trying to backtrack now because he understands that this could actually hurt him politically. But I don't know if, in fact, I doubt that he understands or has gone out of his way to read the nuances of this conflict. I don't know if he knows the historical context. All I know is we need to stop acting as if anyone who runs for Congress or anyone who runs for position as mayor, whatever it is, let's stop pretending that just like the very nature of them running means that they're like super informed on these issues and they have something interesting to say. More often than not, they have no idea what they're talking about. And I think that's the case here. I don't think that Andrew Yang has really given much thought to that conflict.
Yeah, well, I should hope not.
Right.
Because it would suck if his position on something as consequential as the continued existence of so many Palestinian lives was basically just a scrapbook of political interests in the area he's running in. But if this is the product of him seriously thinking about it for a while, that's worse. Because then it's actually representative of something having to do with his value system. And I don't want to believe that that's what it is. But we've now had two versions of his statement. Maybe the third will be better. Maybe, but look, all I'm saying is we've given some credit to Andrew Yang for some of his contributions to American politics. We've had him on, I believe, both the Young Turks. We had him on the Damage Report very early on in the primary. That said, he is running for mayor, but he's also trying to stay politically relevant, potentially for a future presidential run. He is going to want to once again get the Yang Gang geared up and run for president someday. Well, this is when you're showing us what sort of leader you're gonna be, who you care to appeal to. And I know that when he eventually runs for president again, he's gonna want progressives to support him. Well, what are you doing now? You know what progressives value in this topic, and you don't seem to care about it literally at all, even if people die as a result of it. But so just a heads up for later on.
You know, the thing about US media and also just like the culture in the United States versus pretty much anywhere else in the world is that Americans aren't encouraged to care about anything that's happening in other countries.
Yep.
We're just not. I remember when I traveled out of the country for the first time in 2007. And I was in a group, like a young group of people backpacking throughout Europe. And I was like shocked at how much everyone in that group knew about US politics and how little I knew about what was happening in their country. Whether a lot of the people in that group were Australian, there were South Africans, and I was just like, man, you guys are way more informed about the United States than I am about the political climate in your own countries. And of course I knew some things, but not to the extent that they knew. And it's because we're not encouraged. In fact, we're like almost discouraged from learning about other countries and what's happening. So I'm not trying to come across as like, how can you expect Andrew Yang to know about this conflict? No, it's most Americans, because of the nature of the culture here, are just discouraged from learning about these things. It's not covered in depth in our media, and it's just a very narcissistic, self-interested country. Like that's just how Americans are, unfortunately.
That is true.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.